Now, I'm sure we've all heard the meme when discussing a movie that the book was better. And I would normally scoff at that statement, especially if I already watched the movie and liked the movie. Why would I want to go read the book now? That'll take time. Ugh. As you can tell, I don't read often, although it's messed up when I do. I enjoy myself. I saw a movie coming out titled No Exit. It had Dennis Haysbert in it, and honest to God, that's the only reason I even cared about the movie.
Are you in good hands?
The Allstate guy? Yeah. You see, he holds a warm place in my heart because one of my most successful movie reviews is The Abomination: Secret Obsession, and it stars him. So, once my interest was piqued, I went to go check out the comments, and I saw a lot of people commenting about the book. Man, the book was phenomenal. Oh my God, this was such an incredible read. I can't believe they're putting it on the big screen. I hope they don't fuck it up. The majority of the comments was pure passion, and I wanted some. That's when I had the idea to make the impulse buy and read this book before I decided to watch the movie. And that I did. I officially put the infamous meme to the test. It was kind of nice. You know, I would read before bed. I even bought a book lamp. Even worse, I really liked that book lamp. I read it on and off for like 2 weeks, and when I finally finished it, I went to go watch the movie on Hulu. Now, I hate to spoil this so early, but I love the book. And FYI, I am going to spoil the book and the movie in this video. So let me give you my very vague intro about what No Exit is about, and then you can decide whether or not you want to stick around. Darby is a young woman who gets caught up in a snowstorm at a rest stop with absolute strangers. Through her time there, she makes a horrifying discovery and realizes that the growing storm outside is the least of her worries. That's my intro. Super vague. Your call on what you want to do. Also, I got this book back in March and then ended up delaying this video for 5 months. And at the end of those 5 months, I was like, oh, well, I gotta make the video. But I gotta read the book again because I don't remember shit. So I read it and then delayed the video another 4 months. Point is, enjoy the fucking video. It's been a long time coming.
Don't click, no, don't go there. You better go quick, we should both be wary. They got our data and it really can vary from my social if I was a veterinarian. The thought of it all can really get scary, I've never felt more like fish in aquariums. But when you get incognito with the link below, cut them off, Barbara, no Marion. Put my information through the ringer in that one vid. I still get sent spam, all cause of one click. I'm really not joking, they send me physical mail. You should donate more, yeah, we got this sale. Companies post your data, full name, email. Your phone number and family, they can just unveil. You can try to hunt them down, but you might hit voicemail. It's just too many to count, feel like that ship has sailed. That's why I went and got incognito. They tell the data brokers to forget about me. They request they remove it to protect my privacy. They even find objections when the brokers don't concede. The first 100 people to use code MrGG at the link below will get 20% off of Incogni. Protect your privacy today. Go to incogni.com/MrGG and use code MrGG to take your personal data off the market. And thank you, Incogni, for sponsoring this video.
So immediately, we have two very different starts to this story, and I don't know why. In the book, Darby is a timid, broke college student who is driving to see her dying mother even though she didn't leave on the best of terms. In the movie, Darby is a snide drug addict in rehab who breaks out of the facility and steals one of the staff members' cars, with ease by the way, to see her dying mother even though she didn't leave on the best of terms. Her sister Devon sending her devastating text telling her that mom doesn't want her there and that she'll only make things worse. Don't come.
I'm gonna come.
Anyways, in that moment, Darby considers abusing cocaine, doing a little blow, a little bit of zip, that she found in the drop-down mirror of a staff member's car that she stole, need I remind you, from the rehab center, but she fights the urge, flashing back to a time where she OD'd and was found by her family. A police officer wakes her and tells her that the storm outside is only getting worse and she'll be forced to pull into a nearby rest stop because any effort to make it towards her mom is futile. So here's the crowd at the rest stop. We got the Allstate God, who will now be referred to as Ed, what seems to be his companion, Sandy, and then we got two separate bodies relaxing. By the way, I do want to point out that there are multiple medium-sized to diminutive discrepancies between the movie and the book. I will not be pointing them all out, mostly because most of them are just trivial. And I'm only announcing that because, you know, there's always someone in the comments that just wants to raise their pointer at me and be like, "Whoa, I can't believe, hey, you didn't mention that the middle name of the mistress was Angela." It's because it doesn't matter, Fred. Darby is desperate for some signal on her phone to keep in communication with her sister because there's no Wi-Fi at the rest stop. Ed mentions he got a measly bar for a bit outside, so Darby tries the same. It's outside that she hears a thump in a van and brushes the window to see a little girl duct taped, screaming. I know. Where are her parents? Now the book dunks on this portion. In the book, Darby doesn't see everybody before she makes this grisly discovery. So we have a slow burn whodunit building up as Darby slowly gathers bits and pieces in this timeline. The amount of cars outside, the amount of snow that has been building up on the cars to try and figure out who's been here the longest. Also, I love that in the book, the girl who's captured that Darby finds does not immediately start screaming. She instead reacts like somebody who, through threat and punishment, has learned to avoid escape attempts or even causing any kind of commotion. She's scared, fatigued, reclused, but in the movie she just fucking screams her head off as soon as she sees anybody. It's not like a huge detail, but the former makes our antagonist seem that much more intimidating because that happens again in the book where Darby opens a door and she doesn't say anything because she's afraid because she's been kidnapped by a maniac. We get introduced to Sandy and Ed, who seem to be traveling together. They try to get this dweeb's attention who has the aura of the orphanage director from Like Mike. He tells him his name's Lars. Then this handsome devil named Ash wakes up and comes over to play cards with them. They all gather around to play bullshit while Darby is just melting in her mind looking at the van outside. Darby tries figuring out everyone's location and destination after she noticed the plate on the van is from Nevada. And Lars is the only one that mentions that home is Nevada. At the table, we learn a few things about the characters. Ed is a former Marine who's pretty damn good at poker. He's friendly, but not one to fuck with. Ash, named Ashley in the book, is a little charismatic cookie who seems to just be going with the flow. Sandy's nice, but she's got a little bit of Grinch energy to her. She surprised Ed with a vacation in Reno. They are a couple who seems to enjoy gambling and on their way to vacation there. Lars seems very anxious and jumpy. He doesn't get social cues or sarcasm, and he's got a short temper. Darby sneaks off to the women's bathroom, which seems to have some sort of construction underway with a boarded up window in the back, and she tries sending out texts to 911 with the photo of the license plate she took, but the message refuses to go through. Dogshit signal. Desperate to save this little girl, she takes a nearby box cutter, sneaks out the boarded window, and makes her way back to the van. Now, as I mentioned earlier, they've already changed the broke college student to a criminal drug addict, so it's no surprise that they changed the other characters as well. At least a bit. But before I talk about them, I do want to say, devil's advocate, let the record show, I did pick up a spot in the book where Darby mentioned taking ecstasy one time. And also, in all fairness, Darby is a fiend for caffeine. In the book, she slams back Red Bulls like Ninja in 2018, even going so far as to dip into her friend's Adderall. So, sure, the breadcrumbs might have been there to make a bold breaded chicken of the criminal ilk, but I feel like I just need a better explanation as to why. I just really dislike it, primarily for one scene later in the movie. Anyway, the other characters. In the book, Ed is a schlup. He's a fat alcoholic without a job, and he is paired up with his frumpy cousin, Sandy, who's annoying, and she's taking him to a family Christmas gathering. They're not having sex in the book. Lars is a bit more doofusy in the movie, gives big Lenny energy. I mean, he's childish as hell in the book, but I think he's a bit more on point than the movie gives him credit. I also did mention that Darby is timid in the book, but once again, let the record show she does carry some sass with her. She's incredibly clever, even though she doesn't give herself the credit, and she actively learns from her mistakes throughout the story. Ashley is close to his book self, but the one problem there is later in the movie, they butcher his character entirely. He becomes a joke, just an absolute caricature of himself. I think if anything, Sandy's the most similar, but she's also the most non-character in the book, so who cares? And there's one other character we'll get to later, but spoiler, they are nothing like their book self. And frankly, the movie suffers because of it. Let's continue. So she breaks into the car, rushes to the back, and tries to assess the situation.
Are you sick?
But before they can discuss anything else, Lars is outside. Darby quickly hides underneath this bunch of blankets and has her box cutter handy. Lars panics as he sees his little cardboard cover on the back of the van has fallen. He quickly fixes it and talks to the little girl, just inches away from Darby, who sees a gun hanging out of his jeans. He doesn't spot her and decides to go back inside to get the little girl a snack. Now, listen, I think after I read the book, the movie had a tough act to follow up. Everything seems so rushed compared to the book. Obviously, there's a lot of inner thought narration with Darby in the book. Her struggling with the position she's in, the impulse decisions she has to make, the fact that her dying mother has somehow fallen down the list of priorities. Once she sees Jay, the little girl in the car, her mind is running 1,000 miles per hour, and she is struggling to trust in anybody, including herself. So with all of that, it's tough for me to believe the intended tension in a scene like this. But even worse, and this is strictly the movie's fault, Darby is armed with a box cutter, and because of Lars squatting down, facing away, distracted, she is in her first advantageous position. Because in the book, she's a possum. If Lars even gets a whiff of her, she's fucking dead. But here in the movie, as we can see with our eyes, I should be careful with this fucking thing, she gets a clear green light at either a slash or two, or even better, a gun snatch. This pistol might as well be a fucking dingleberry, the way it's just hanging out of his ass, just waiting for the taking. Like in the book, she might not do this, and it would make total sense. Because at this point in the story, she's not that bold. She hasn't solidified herself as the hero, whether she dies or not. But the same can't be said for the movie, because she's ballsy in the movie. She carjacked somebody and broke out of rehab. You cannot convince me that this girl's frail. There is one, count it, one massive obstacle in her life right now. He is in the most vulnerable position that you could ever imagine him being in. And I'm sorry, viewer, I'm not done complaining about this scene. The quick "are you sick" line boils my balls.
Are you sick?
Because that's such a DEFCON 1 moment in the book, and we don't discover that information until much later. Granted, it's not fully explained right now, but why even just quickly gloss over it like that? Darby uses it as a reason to determine urgency in a later conversation with Ashley to convince him to help her, but there's urgency without that detail. There is a dangerous armed man in this rest stop with us that has a little girl captive, freezing outside. I'm not gonna take all of that in and then be like, oh, well, does she need insulin? So like I said, Darby escapes from the van and returns to the bathroom. But Lars does see footsteps this time and realizes someone was here. Ash goes to check in on Darby in the bathroom because she's either taking a steamer for the ages or she's dead. Darby drags him in and explains the situation, but not before Lars bursts into the bathroom. Kiss me, you fool. Oh, sorry. I was just coming into the women's bathroom to do something normal. You guys made it weird. Ashley devises a plan where Darby goes back outside to the car through the front door this time, and they know Lars is onto her, so he'll naturally follow her. And that's when Ashley will quickly explain the situation to Ed, and hopefully the former Marine has a gun, because Lars has one. And then they kill Lars while he's distracted. Assuming Ed's not armed, Ashley searches through this little construction zone and finds a nail gun that he's gonna hide somewhere. The plan goes into action, and for some reason, Darby actually goes into the van for the fake out, which leaves her in a fuck scenario if everything doesn't go according to plan, which it doesn't. Once Darby takes the tape off of Jay's mouth, she panics, asking, where are the men that took her? Yes, ladies and gentlemen, Lars is a bad boy, but he's nothing without his brother, Ashley. The dastardly duo of dingus and douchebag. And I hate the movie from here so very much. Okay, so let's talk rest stop. The book describes the rest stop in a very particular way. Now, I'll be honest with you, it's tough for me to perfectly picture it with all the words. It's a lot of words. The author Taylor Adams breaks it down bit by bit, piece by piece, but he's just a lot. So, it's one of those things where like, you just blast through it and you're like, yeah, that's beautiful, man. But I'm just picturing my local 7-Eleven. I'm better at kind of picturing where everybody is, how far everything is through action. I say that as a disclaimer because I'm not gonna be able to nail the visibility across the lot, how big the lot is, how well you can see into the rest stop, how well you can see out of the rest stop. But from my understanding of what I read, from inside the rest stop, it is not this clear-cut view as to what is happening outside. Because you have to hobble in the lot, the snow is apparently knee-deep, it is still coming down like none other, and it sounds like a pretty damn big lot. My point is with all this, you might ask yourself, how were Ed and Sandy oblivious to everything that is happening right now? Or not even at the very least suspicious? Now, the movie does show Ed raise his eyebrows here and there, and Sandy will calm him down. But I gotta call a flag on the play, at least for this scene. Ed and Sandy see Darby leave. She goes beeline to the van that is not hers. And in the movie, the fucking van is right under a street light. There are more street lights in the lot. There's a light right outside the rest stop. It is hardly dark outside. Ed or Sandy should have seen Darby go to the van. But okay, sure. They were enthralled in each other's presence and didn't bother to look. Lars then gets up to follow her and just stands outside. Okay, maybe Sandy's talking to Ed about how she's gonna rock his world once they're in Reno, and he's just dialed in. But then Ash walks out with a bag and stands alongside Lars. The majority of the rest stop has just one by one chosen to leave their heated abyss. Any oorahs popping off in that head of yours, Ed? And listen, I get it. It's tough to see things. I mean, they're standing behind a tree. They couldn't possibly see past the tree. But yeah, then they exchange weapons, walk past the street light armed, where the light is with the street light that's turned on with electricity. Do all this shit, and guess what? During this, the movie got a kick out of this one. We're shown Ed on high alert, staring out of the clearest windows I've ever seen in my life. Must have just been Windex before they got there. Then Ash jogs back inside like, whew.
Everything okay?
Yeah.
Then Lars walks back in, and Ed says,
I don't like that guy.
you got a heart of gold, Ed. Just, not much up here. Welcome to a segment I like to call Why Ed Sucks in the Movie. In the book, Ed is a schlub. He's a bum, bit of a smart mouth, but he's overall kinda useless. He's just sneaking in sips of vodka throughout the day. He often seems bored and distracted. He can't even get Darby's name right. He calls her Dara. So it kinda makes sense in the book. Ed is just oblivious to everything that is going on. But you changed him in the movie. And not only did you change him into a vigilant veteran. But somehow, for the most part, he is still just oblivious. With the skill set you gave that man, how is this story not being impacted by him in the slightest? Like in the movie Ride Along, we got Ice Cube and Kevin Hart. And Kevin Hart's a bit of a dingus. And they get into a lot of shenanigans together because Kevin Hart's a bit of a dingus. Now imagine they remade that movie, but this time we have two Ice Cubes. I'm going to assume that the same shit wouldn't happen.
The owner of that pub keeps complaining about people parking in his handicapped spaces. Go make an example.
Those two Ice Cubes would have the criminal ring shut down by lunchtime, or whatever the fuck the plot is to that movie. You get my point, right? Ash rushes to the back to cut off Darby, who's sneaking through the bathroom exit, and he's got her held up. He immediately asks for his cell phone, sees her call to 911 failed, and sees her text message failed. He scrolls over to the messages with her sister and sees the mean messages Devon sent regarding her dying mom. Meanwhile, Lars tells a suspicious Ed that he thinks Darby's outside, so Ed just goes to walk outside. But none of this matters because this conversation.
What kind of drugs?
Whatever I could get.
Bet your dad loved that, huh? Big time war hero with a junkie daughter.
He's dead.
Would he die in the war?
Would he die in the war? I can't do it. It's literally such a bad line. I can't do it. Never mind. So this one might just be my nitpick, but this is like Ashley if Ashley was just a checklist. Like, yeah, I get the references. You're checking all the boxes, but he's just not that guy. Allow me to describe Book Ashley to you in great detail. Now, he does say mean shit like this in the book. He does taunt Darby, and he does do it openly. However, to dig deeper, he is a showman. This scenario is a game to him. He's a compulsive liar. He can be very violent, damn near maniacal. He's never killed a human, but he could possibly have his own pet cemetery with his years of animal abuse. He truly does love seeing what he can get away with, so he does openly fuck around with Darby, taking these open jabs and disguised language right in front of Ed, even purposely foreshadowing his own criminal role at the very beginning of the book before anybody knows anything. And that's dangerous because he's a charismatic bucko. As stubborn as all of the cast is at the rest stop, he still managed to twirl them all around his finger. He gasses himself up as a lucky man. Everything just seems to work out for him. So for example, he has no problem doing something like smashing Darby's face into the table while Sandy is asleep and Ed's outside, basically begging for a target on his back. And yeah, he does that. Ashley gets off to that shit. Watching Darby try to hide her pain so she doesn't accidentally get this rest stop aired out, that's like his fucking kink. Ashley is a menace in the book, but he also likes when Darby's spicy. He enjoys the battle of the minds. In another world, he would fall in love with a girl like this. But in this world, he's gonna torture her with zero remorse. Then with all of that I just said, he's just not really that guy in this movie. And honestly, I think nailing Ashley should have been priority over nailing Darby, because Darby's incredible in the book, but she very much rises to the occasion because of who Ashley is. She quickly recognizes his wit. She sees how easily he can read her. Frankly, there is no Darby without Ashley. Anyway, the only useful information here is the clarification that Jay is sick and has Addison's, so if she gets too excited, she'll OD on adrenaline. Ed checks Lars's van while Jay is using the box cutter to break herself free, but he doesn't see anything, so he waves to Sandy to go check the back. She does, and this time Ashley tries pulling the same rom-com kiss cover-up, but it looks like this. And if I walked in on this type of energy, this would still be a cause for concern. Sandy tells Ashley to leave, and Darby then proceeds to try and add to the story cover-up in a really shit way. They all sit back at the table, and I'm sorry. At this point, nobody here should trust anybody. But, surprisingly enough, the energy is pretty much identical to the time they were playing cards at the beginning, when no one was kidnapping children. I'm sorry, I don't like beating a dead horse, but the horse killed my family, and I'm vengeful. Ed should be sat there with a shank underneath the table because he doesn't trust Lars, and he should not trust Ash. Everybody reconvenes, but no questions are asked. Ed turns to Darby and starts asking her about her father in the military. How about, why did you all leave? How is Darby back in the building? Why does Darby look scared? She's walking around like a battered housewife. Sandy's the one that found them, but she didn't explain anything. She just gave Ed an eye roll. Sure, that clarified things.
You know, these kids sneaking around blizzards and then breaking into bathrooms.
Ash starts speaking like a villain. I mean, he's not saying anything crazy. He's just talking about how Darby's father took his own life, but like not anything weird. This is the type of shit I'm talking about. Checklist Ashley. Then Darby sees a little fella out there in the storm. Look at the little guy. Jay has cut her restraints and she's off. Nobody says anything, but looks are given. Lars just kind of gets up and leaves. So does Darby, but her leave makes more sense with the conversation they just had, like it made her uncomfortable. And then Ashley's leave makes sense too, because Ed tells him to apologize to her for sharing a story he did not have the right to share. He bursts into the bathroom and gets whacked by a hammer. We'll ignore that. Ashley starts to choke Darby out, but Lars butts in like, hey, what are you doing? Lars is worried about Jay and acknowledges she won't run back to them if they're calling out to her, even if she is freezing to death. But Ashley thinks she might respond to Darby's voice, so they stick her up and force her to call out for Jay in the hiking trail. And after a bit, Darby sees the footsteps lead elsewhere, but she decides to keep the brothers aimlessly following her, and all she needs now is an escape plan. And she doesn't have many options. She has no weapon, and they have a gun pointing at her back. So she does this. Yes, Darby shines her flashlight in the guys' faces and HMO 5s their ass and then barrels down a hill. Ashley misses his gunshot, and now it's a game of hide and seek. Meanwhile, Ed hears the gunshot and Sandy continues to be fucking annoying. Once Ed runs out, he sees Jay collapse in the snow and brings her into the rest stop. Darby manages to bamboozle the brothers and she returns to the rest stop. Couple things to bring up. In the book, when Darby is being held at gunpoint, walking about, calling out to Jay, she's running through all of these scenarios in her head, how to get out of the situation. And one of the bad ideas she thinks of is to shine the light in their face and then run away. The movie used one of the ideas that Darby didn't do in the book because it would get her killed. Am I the only one that thinks if you're trying to do fan service for the book readers, that it's almost insulting to choose one of Darby's leftover reject shit ideas to use in the movie? Now, the reason I think they did this is, one, there's a tiny backstory in the book where Darby talks about adjusting her eyes to the dark. It's never mentioned in the movie, but it actually comes up quite a bit in the book. Basically, if you close one eye and go into a dark room and then open this eye is already going to be well adjusted to the dark. This eye will not be. So with that, let me read you the passage that I'm talking about. Half-heartedly, Darby assessed her own options at gunpoint. Fight, get shot. Run, get shot in the back. She considered turning and shining the flashlight into the gunmen's eyes to blind them, but their pupils were already adjusted to the light. This was problem number one, and even if she could blind them for a few seconds, the snowbound terrain was too rough for a quick escape, which was problem number two. It's a bad fucking idea. So what she ends up doing in the book is actually turning off the light and then starting to gun it down a hill because they're already adjusted to the light. Well, it'll take them a bit to adjust to the dark. This is my best option. Not to mention in the book, they're about 10 paces back as opposed to just breathing down her neck. And frankly, I think the main reason this wouldn't work in the movie is because how the movie looks. Like, it's not dark. There's very clear movie lighting that wouldn't be charitable to a scene like that. But that's just me using my eyes as a viewer. And I guess I'm wrong because they actually end up doing that later in the movie. I also want to add, considering the fact that I've already passed the threshold for for annoying. The gang were sat at the furthest table back earlier and saw Jay leave the van clear as day. Just adding on to my earlier spat. And cherry on top, when Ed's outside, he spots Jay collapsed in the blizzard snow from across the parking lot. The movie is telling me there is very clear visibility outside, but only when the movie wants it to be like that. Awesome. I'll shut the fuck up. Darby returns and sees Jay is in an adrenal crisis. She needs her medicine ASAP. The brothers start to negotiate from the outside as Ed blockades the door and the curtains are closed. Ed threatens to shoot them dead if they walk through the door and they back up. Ed doesn't actually have a gun, and there's a neat little callback where Ashley calls bullshit, but they still won't enter because they're not sure. They then leverage Jay's health. She needs her medicine, so she either dies in there or you give her to us. Also, did we forget to mention that we know she's in there? Because the movie didn't tell us. What can we see? What can we not, movie? It has just been hurting my brain this entire review. They're about halfway between van and rest stop, and they see that Darby is in there, but they don't acknowledge that Jay is. The missing child they were looking for, the thing they should very much react to if they fucking spot her lying down flat from all the way over there. They don't acknowledge her until the negotiation. They also don't acknowledge Ed barricading the door right in front of them. Ashley says, "What are we doing here?" But they haven't even heard Ed's threat yet, and they were planning to just go right in there anyways. So if you see Ed's old ass blockading the door, just shoot him. Or do you not see him? Which is it? Darby actually ended up getting Ashley's keys in an earlier scuffle, so Ed tells him, give us the medicine and we'll give you the keys. And you can leave, which Ash didn't even know he didn't have. So now that Ashley realizes he's been one-upped, he decides, well, I'm just gonna burn this shit to the ground, I don't care. Ed tells Darby to hide the keys while he calls Ashley's bluff. Meanwhile, Sandy's melting into a panicky mess and goes to get her mace. They go back and forth, and then Jay wakes up.
Is this Lowry?
Oh! You like Krabby Patties, don't you, Sandy? So in that moment, we get a flashback immediately. Sandy is Jay's housekeeper, and we're shown Jay being a brat, forcing Sandy to do a TikTok dance, even like blackmailing her to do it. And she's kidnapped that same day while Sandy just listens from upstairs. Sandy says her and Ed were cleaned out money-wise. She was desperate and had to do something, so she teamed up with these dinguses to kidnap and ransom Jay for money from her rich parents, which she would get a cut from. That same day, a detective shows her that TikTok video like, oh, you were talking with her not that long ago. You didn't hear anything? Nope, had my headphones on and was vacuuming. Okay. Then we're shown her on the phone talking to Ashley and Lars, the kidnappers that she's working with, while the police are still scrubbing through the house, when you seem to be the prime suspect. Anyways, Ashley's on the phone complaining that the medicine wasn't where you said it was, so she's gonna die. So come meet us and give us the medicine, or we'll bury this kid in the mountains and you get jack shit. So that's why she's at this rest stop. That's why they're at this rest stop. This was supposed to be their meeting area where she gave them the medicine. After Ed goes back and forth with her over it, Sandy yells out to them that Ed doesn't have a gun, completely destroying any leverage they had. Ed and Darby are understandably upset, so Sandy pepper sprays Darby to shut her the fuck up. Sandy's surrendering because she thinks they won't harm her or Ed if she cooperates, and she still needs a payday. Ashley and Lars immediately take over the room, and Ash gives Sandy the medicine to give to Jay, because Sandy's a nurse. Which she does. Jay will live a bit longer. Woo. So yeah, Sandy's a nurse and also an idiot. She pleads to Ashley, well, you're still not gonna hurt Jay. You're just gonna ransom her, right? We're all still cool here? That's when Darby breaks the news that they are not gonna ransom her. They are instead taking her to their Uncle Kenny's, who traffics kids. Sandy continues to plead that Jay's parents will pay top dollar, but she just doesn't realize Ashley's past the point of no return. Ed gets it. That's why he tells Darby not to give up the location of the hidden keys, which they need to leave, or he's just gonna kill them all anyways. Then this happens. And he wrangles up Darby, pins her against the wall, and shoots a nail right through her wrist. Lars's dumbass doesn't know what to do after taking some seasoning to the face, so Ashley goes to clean him off in the bathroom. And he tells Jay, you move and I kill Darby. Now then, it is at this point where we have really diverted from the book. I mean, there's an entire chapter missing, we start to see how much of a non-character Jay is, and the whole Sandy hiccup isn't really explained as much in the movie. So, in the book, Jay makes it back to the rest stop on her own. And once Darby arrives, she then learns about her condition for the first time, which obviously worsens the situation. She hasn't taken her medicine for 4 days, and if she gets overexcited during this siege, she can die right then and there. But even before that, when they're planning to still hold them off, Jay gives Darby a note that says, don't trust them. And Darby obviously can't ask her what that means because they're by everybody and they're in the middle of a standoff. But later on, right when the dingoes are about to break in, Jay tells her that she thought she recognized Sandy as her bus driver back in San Diego. And after Darby yells at Ed, demanding that he tells them where they're from, Sandy hits her with mace and then opens the door for Ashley. The reveal is lovely. And the movie tried to do the same, as you saw, but the immediate flashback is just such a bizarre choice. You have surprised the audience, and instead of riding that adrenaline, having them question the motives, the relationship, everything as chaos erupts, you just bring us to a grinding halt and answer most of our questions in a damn near comical way. Why? I'm sorry, but the people who wrote this and adapted this from Taylor Adams' book just failed. This sucks. Like, I made this video to put the meme to the test. The book was better. And the book was better. And I honestly think the only reason this movie has any type of positive reception is because it adapted the story from a good book. It is hard work to make this story suck. And don't get me wrong, they fucked it. But if you spit in my Wagyu, it's still pretty good fucking steak. In the book, while Darby is blinded, Jay's smart enough to get some hot water from the carafe to flush her face. And Jay leads her to the bathroom. Sandy lets the criminals waltz in as she scolds them for how wrong everything has gone. She tells them Darby's in the bathroom with Jay, but Ashley is just a little too distracted with a sad, drunk Ed defending the bathroom doors with a lug wrench in his hand. Even with guns pointing at him, he refuses to give up the girls and he's prepared to die for them. And this is a really nice moment for Ed. This entire book, he's been described to us as a bum, a loser. He's been oblivious to this whole fucking thing. But there he is, standing tall, protecting absolute strangers, even with Sandy trying to get him to back down. He even gets the sack to talk a whole heap of shit to Ashley's face. I love it. That's what we call character arc, baby. What the fuck did he do in the movie? He was always protective. He was just already that guy. And then he just went out like a fucking prop. Boo! Regardless, with Ashley's threats and Sandy's pleading, at the end of it, Ed knows that there's really nothing he can do. He wouldn't even be able to get a swing in. So his eyes break and he drops his weapon and he puts his hands up. And Ashley thanks him by then shooting a nail into his chin, pinning his tongue to the roof of his mouth. He doesn't die, but he's in terrible shape as Sandy runs to his aid. And it is only then that Ashley dials back in and he realizes, wait, they're in the bathroom? Bathroom window, and he hears his truck start outside. Darby and Jay speed off with an array of bullets and nails hitting the truck. And this is the missing chapter because they drive for a while. Jay and Darby discuss a lot, strengthening their bond, and eventually the car eats shit. Not that far from the rest stop, and the dingoes catch up to him and then force him back at gunpoint. Movie. Darby's not a fan of nails in her forearm, but this convenient hammer might prove useful. She calls Jay over to reach the hammer for her, but the fellas rejoice a bit too quick. They hide the hammer with Jay's body, and Ashley demands to know where the keys are. Also, it'd be cool if you guys remember the lines you wrote for these guys.
Jay, if you move, I'll kill her.
Ashley gets a text on Darby's phone. Darby's mom died. Her sister texted her. Darby goes into another zone. Another text comes through confirming the police are on their way to the location. Apparently, Darby's earlier text to 911 actually went through. Ashley pleads for the keys again and threatens Jay with a nail to the hand. Lars doesn't even want him to do it. Lars in general in the movie is not about the killing. In the book, he's a bit more lax about it, even gets some joy out of it. Darby doesn't risk a nail through Jay's hand and she tells him she threw the keys outside the bathroom window. Ashley goes to search and Darby devises a plan telling Jay to turn out the lights, knowing Lars won't hurt her. Then we get the scene. The scene. The scene.
Jay! Jay, where you go, Jay? Please! He told you what was gonna happen.
That's right, Darby pulls out her handy dandy booger sugar from the beginning of the movie and snorts up a mound to power through her reverse cow nail situation at hand. Lars turns the lights back on and Darby smacks him with the hammer. Hey, kind of like she smacked Ashley. Ashley hears a gunshot and rushes back inside to see Darby holding Lars at gunpoint, even though he peeked in the window before and didn't really react to anything. Jay rushes in to smack Ashley's hand, having him accidentally shoot right in Lars' dome piece. And this is a funny frame. Darby switches her attention to an Ashley that has now lowered his weapon and does not shoot. Darby is not dumb, but this movie couldn't help to include this, oh, I mean, I could kill this person I need to kill, but I'm just gonna do something else. Ashley has a comical, oh, you're gonna be all right, buddy moment with dying Lars, while Darby and Jay rush into Darby's car? Why? How are you doing so many things wrong? Darby and Ashley are both cunning characters. They would both never do either of these things. Also, how is Darby now so stupid at trying to escape in her car? Such a huge point in the book is escape by car is nearly futile. The best chances of a getaway would be with a truck, which she doesn't have. And she knows this. It's still snowing. She knows this is certain death with this baby-ass car. She had all the time in the world to shoot Ashley. Even as she backs away, the barrel is lined up with him. And it never occurs to her to shoot. Instead, she chooses to drive this vulnerability on wheels through a blizzard, giving Ashley, the nail gun marksman, the advantage. In the book, Darby gets the text that her mom died while they're walking back to the rest stop, and Ashley is sifting through her phone. That's where Darby's emotions take a dive. She wants to cry, she wants to give up, but she also doesn't want to give Ashley the satisfaction. But that 911 text reply actually came through when they were getting away in the car, the chapter that was missing, so Ashley never saw that text. So another factor that keeps Darby standing is the fact that police will be there in a certain amount of time, and Ashley will be none the wiser. Ashley keeps asking for the keys and Darby will not give them up, so he takes her fingers and he puts them in a little door hinge. And he asks her one more time to give him the keys, but she refuses, mostly because he knows he's gonna do it no matter what, which he does. Sandy yells at Ashley because she still thinks she's like an equal third of this group. Ashley starts to tell her, hey, your plan was not the same as my plan. You see, in the book, Sandy had a storage unit set up that had money, the keys to her family's cabin, and Jay's medicine that these dingoes would go pick up after they kidnapped Jay. She gave them the code for it. They should be able to enter just fine. However, the units had a break-in. They changed the rules for that time and they said, no digital codes. No, we need physical keys only, which Sandy had. So they had to meet Sandy again one way or another. And the original plan was to go to that storage unit, go up to the cabin, and then negotiate a ransom with the parents during this time because they told the parents not to call the police. But the parents did call the police. So their plan has just been going to shit. Because they called the police, Sandy was a suspect because she was the bus driver that dropped her off that day. Not to mention, she stole some of her cortisone shots from the nurse's office. So if they figure that out, they're gonna pin it on her, and then Sandy's 1000% gonna give them up. Ashley and Lars are screwed. She's a liability. So Ashley's new plan was to meet at this rest stop, grab the keys, shoot Sandy in the fucking face, and then take Jay to their Uncle Kenny, who would give them money for trafficking her. But they did not expect a blizzard to snow them in the rest stop that they were gonna meet at. They did not expect Sandy to fucking bring Ed to tag along, and nobody expected Darby to show up. With all that, Ashley's surprised that Sandy's still there. Even if she is tending to Ed, is everything not clicked up there yet? Sandy, you're gonna die. So Ashley wrestles her to the ground, forcing her to apologize for something she said about Lars earlier. And I would love to read this part for you because, I mean, yeah, movie Ashley shot 2 people and shot a nail in Darby's wrist. Crazy. But book Ashley has given yellow cards to Lars and Jay. A yellow card is a nickname for shooting a nail through their hand when they misbehave. Kind of just like a super casual thing in the book. You already know what he did to Ed. You just heard what he did to Darby. And this is what he does to Sandy in front of everybody. Viewer discretion is advised. Ashley adjusted his hold on Sandy's scalp, planted his boot higher between her shoulder blades for leverage, Darby realized, and tugged hard. The woman's neck broke, eventually. It wasn't quick or painless. Sandy screamed until she was out of air, her face going a rotten purple, her eyes bulging before going flat, her fingers clawing, kicking. Ashley paused once, adjusting his grip before yanking her head harder, harder, harder. 90 degrees backward now until her vertebrae finally dislocated in an audible wet string of clacks. This sounds kinky in a different context, like popping knuckles. If she had still been conscious, she might have experienced the paraplegic horror of her body going numb. It was a straining, clumsy, grunting process, and it took a full 30 seconds before Sandy was visibly dead. This is the type of guy we're dealing with in the book. Book Ashley would have shoved razor blades in the mouth of movie Ashley and then forced him to chew. Darby still won't give up the keys. So Ashley puts the nail gun to Ed's head, who's still there. He's dying, but he's alive. And there is another unfortunate reveal at this point. You see, when Darby's text sent earlier, she sent the police to the Wanna Show rest stop. But as she is staring at an Ed, with fear in his eyes, hoping to live, there's a map behind him, and she realizes right then and there that they are at the Wanna Shono rest stop. She had confused the names upon arrival, and the rescue team that she has been desperately waiting for is currently inspecting an empty rest stop. And with that, Darby gives up. She tells Ashley that the keys are outside, even though she knows that's not gonna change Ed's fate. Nail gun to the head, Ed's gone. So a similar plan is devised here. Darby has Jay go put the deadbolt on the front door and turn out the lights as Lars panics on what to do. Darby yanks her fingers out in pain. She's missing these two fingers completely, but she still sneaks up on Lars, dives for him, and then stabs him in the throat with the very same Swiss Army knife that she gave Jay earlier in the book to saw her way out of the cage. And the scuffle does not stop there. They keep fighting back and forth. She breaks his finger. She takes the heel of the pistol and she fucking cracks his cheekbone open. And while he's crawling away, calling for his brother, she takes the Swiss Army knife and she stabs him in the fucking head. Darby goes berserk because she knows what has to be done. Ashley hears the gunshots, thinking Lars did something dumb, but after Darby yells to him that she killed him, how does he respond? Does he get super sad like he did in the movie? No, he basically breaks his fucking hand punching the front door, and then he wants to keep breaking his hands out of anger, but he controls himself and he thinks, I will grieve later, but right now I am killing this little bitch because he knows what has to be done. Driving off, Ashley shoots a whole ass Home Depot into her shit and their tires screech into a post. Crash. He then decides, well, I think they're dead. Let me light the rest stop on fire right now. Darby comes to and reaches for a screwdriver on the ground and the gun. And right on time, the police officer finally shows up and Ashley hides his nail gun. Ashley tries to play victim, telling him there's been an accident. They need help in the car. But the officer wants to see his hands. He doesn't know what the hell's happening. Darby finally reaches the gun, peeks out of the car, and shoots Ashley, because I guess that's something she'd like to do. The officer continues to bark orders even when he sees Darby, who just shot a man. He tells her to drop her weapon, which she does not, trying to explain to the officer that Ashley is bad. And as he crawls to his nail gun, the officer shoots Darby. Ashley then lunges for the gun and pops old dog-ass Reflex over here with a frosty one to the chest. He then stands up to kill Darby, because I guess that's a thing he'd like to do? No ammo. So he walks over to finish the officer and takes his gun. He returns to do the cliche taunting her before he kills her thing, which gives her time to take the screwdriver and yam it in his throat. And Ashley's finally dead. Jay's alive in the car sobbing, Darby, where are you? Because she's useless. Real Jay wouldn't do this. Book Jay's got some Kajanis on her. She'd be on the hunt already. Darby crawls to the, hey wait, by the way, if he walked over to kill the officer, what, because he had the nail gun, why the fuck didn't he just kill Darby with the nail gun? Okay. Darby crawls to the officer, calls for a 2319, and we then see her back in rehab safe and sound. And guess what? She has a guest. It's her sister Devon. Oh, it's so cute. They can work on their relationship now. This is the wholesomeness we needed to top this off. Definitely not the everlasting bond she just formed with this little girl she saved for the entire fucking movie. Movie's butt. Let's end the book. Ashley heard all of the gunshots that went off during the scuffle, so he knows that Darby is out of ammo. So he starts to break the window to get inside. Little does he know though, much earlier in the book, Jay had given Darby a loose bullet that was rolling around in the van. It might come in handy. So she has one shot once Ashley breaks in. But during that downtime that they had with Lars was pouring gas everywhere because they were going to burn all the evidence and leave without a trace. And Darby remembers this. So if she shoots inside the rest stop, it is very possible that she could just set off a bomb. So as Ashley breaks in, she takes some napkins and she stuffs them in the toaster behind her, and then she rushes to the bathroom window one last time, tosses Jay over, tries to get over in time. As Ashley walks in, he hears a little crinkle and he quickly realizes what's happening. The rest stop erupts in flames. Darby dives out of the window and breaks her ankle, and they hobble away to see a snowplow start to pull up to the rest stop. She then begs Jay to run to the driver and ask for help because she has something to finish. She needs to be positive that Ashley is dead. So many things have gone wrong tonight. She is not taking any chances, which is weird because this one in the movie doesn't have that mindset. She feels a whoosh past her hair and realizes that Ashley's walking towards her. He's shooting nails at her. He's also on a mission and he's a bit burnt. And that is unfortunately when his nail gun's battery dies. But he doesn't have too much to worry, even though he sees Darby walking very confidently towards him with a pistol in her hand. But why is she so confident with an empty handgun? He doesn't take the chance and he rushes back to his truck so he can swap out the battery of his nail gun. It is there that Darby pops up behind him and holds him at gunpoint. And at this point in the book, she doesn't know everything about Uncle Kenny and the trafficking ring, so she demands to know, what were you gonna do with Jay? And Ashley tells all, because he's trying to buy himself some time because behind his back, back, he is swapping out the battery to the nail gun. Darby also demands Kenny's full name and his address, and he tells her. And then he starts to babble a bit more until he's interrupted by Darby, and then you hear a gunshot ring in the air. And that's when we hear, "I said drop it!" Yes, a cop shot that bullet, and the person who was shot was Darby. All that idiot saw was a woman with a gun in her hand, so she was the enemy, and down she goes. And if you're wondering how the officer was fucking oblivious to what was happening, when Jay went up to the snowplow driver, she just froze up. She wanted to tell him, hey, my friend's in trouble, this is happening, blah, 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 but she just couldn't, overwhelmed with emotion. She's a child. So yeah, Darby falls, and then he tells Ashley, put your hands up. And he says, sure. Nails, and the officer goes down. And Ashley is ecstatic. He's fucking whistling Christmas music as he goes over to take the gun from the officer and walk back over to the plow and then put on the nice guy charm again. Hey, I'm a victim. The officer sent me over here. He wants you to make a call. And the driver, I think, is a little hesitant, but then he opens the door because he's such a charming man. And as soon as he steps out, Ashley shoots him. And this whole time, Ashley's just thinking, I'm the luckiest motherfucker to have ever lived. I'm immortal. I can't be stopped. So this poor truck driver starts crawling away, begging him not to kill him. And Ashley goes over to put the gun behind his head, and then he feels like somebody's watching him. So he turns around, and somebody is. It's Jay. And she is aiming a gun straight at him. She had ran over to Darby's body and taken the gun that has one bullet in it, and then rushed back to finish the job. Bang. And she misses Ashley. He did not feel a scratch or a tickle. He thinks he's a god at this point. So he tells her jokingly, oh, nice shooting, Jay. But no sound comes out. His vision then starts to blur. He then starts to feel something wet run down his face. Jay didn't miss. She hit him right between the fucking eyes, and Ashley goes down. Jay then rushes back to Darby, who's in and out, and Darby tells her to go tell the snowplow driver to take her to a hospital ASAP. But the final thing she tells her to do is to grab a pen and write on her arm Kenny's full name and his address. So when the cops find Ashley's frozen body, they can take down Kenny too. Jay does exactly that, and now Darby can finally rest. So she closes her eyes. We then flash forward to Jay and her parents standing around a gravestone. Jay's dad specifically wanted to fly out there because he wanted to see Darby because he owes Darby the world for what she did. So they were all there for her, and they looked down at the gravestone of Maya Thorne, Darby's mom. Jay and Darby exchange a little dialogue about Darby's mom, Darby telling Jay that she was wrong about how she thought their love for each other was complicated. And the book ends. Beautiful. It's a great book. I could go into more, but this video's too long and you know it. And I do want to say, I feel bad for these actors, man. I feel like they could do great in another movie, but I think they just got left out to dry here. I don't think they had shit to work with. But alas, I put the meme to the test. Was the book better? This time, the book was much, much better. My only hope from the movie is that it brings more attention to the book. Thank you for watching. Here are my lovely patrons. Thank you guys for supporting me very much. I did a live commentary for Jack Frost 2 on there if you want to go check it out. Subscribe to the second channel for much more extra content. It's good shit. And as always, I am Mr. Gigi, and I am out.